thank you for being here. Beautiful day in California. These are California poppies. Very close at hand. I have some in the garden. We do this every month pretty much, and we invite people to sort of demystify what it is to be an entrepreneur, what it is to be in Silicon Valley. We bring people from other parts of the world as well. And we just want to bring a little bit of the humanities and reality check to what it is that we're trying to do, because everybody talks about the successes and some people don't just assume it's easier than it really is.
Right.
And I learned the hard way through an investor that sometimes the best thing that you need to do is close the company and move on. And you take the learning, you take the experience, and it's not the end of the world. And so that prompted me to ask Matt to talk about his journey. And then we were talking about Anita. And then I said, hey, nobody talks about the other side. And so the topic of this conversation is that if you have a partner, because some people don't, if you have a partner, it's never lonely on the top. You're always with somebody, but it doesn't mean that it's always a rosy. And so, yeah, so
it's a bumpy road.
It's just reality, it's just life. So what I want to do is I want you to describe a little bit of your journey and how did you two meet? That's one thing.
Okay.
If that is appropriate. And if it's not, please say that, because it's going to be even better. And then how did you start thinking about being an entrepreneur, and where were the challenges, and what kept your sanity? Because here you are together where most people it's too hard. So I think it's a great story. So that's what I wanted to start. So why don't you start?
Well, we could start with where we met.
Yeah.
We met in college, actually.
Okay.
We met basically just before school was starting. We were at the library buying books at the bookstore, and that's where we met.
Who saw who first?
I'm not sure.
I saw her legs first.
You saw my legs first.
She was coming downstairs.
There you go.
So
just like the princess.
Yeah.
We just were friends at the beginning, and then later on we became girlfriend, boyfriend, as they call it. And we finished college and we got married, 4 years later? Well, we didn't get married right away. Okay. Yeah, but the entrepreneurial bug hit Matt right away.
Right away?
Right away.
Were you born with that?
I don't know. Early on, I thought about this not that long ago, that both my grandparents were businessmen.
Oh.
My grandfather came from Lebanon when I was 18. Went to Cuba when he was 18. And the story goes that he was selling stuff out of from a horse and selling clothing and stuff like that. And he started a store.
Oh my goodness.
And so for me, I grew up with the life in the store, and everybody. The store was the house, and the house was the store. There was no distinction. And then on my father's side, my grandfather on that side had left home when he was 9.
He left home when he was 9?
Yeah, and apprenticed with a guy, and then did a bunch of different things. And,
where was home for him? Cuba?
In Cuba also. And
oh, wow.
And then, and again, when I met him, he drove a taxi. It was his own car, which at the time was a big deal. But I hadn't thought of it until now that they were both entrepreneurs in the roughest of roughest of way. But my father and my uncle were professionals. They went to college, and so I kind of started that way, and then decided to do my own thing.
So what was your first first company?
So I worked at a teaching hospital for 3 years in my career. And then that was at a time when people didn't know how to spell Unix. And we had a lot of experience with Unix. So we started doing consulting, and later on selling hardware and software. And I had to learn the stuff on the fly. That was my first company, if you will.
And were you married at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were married.
And we had our first kid already, right?
That was when Nexus started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Adrian and my oldest son in Nexus started at the same time. And then I ended up with a lot of customers here in the West Coast. I would come every so often.
Where were you, just for the audience?
Oh, I was in Chicago.
You were in Chicago.
Yeah, that's where we went to school at U of I, Illinois. And I had a lot of customers out here, and there was a terrible, horrible winter when I got frostbite and all kinds of things. It was, back then you would land on the tarmac in San Jose. And as I was coming down, I kept thinking, and I thought, why do I live in Chicago? You know? And so they had made, one of my customers was always trying to hire me. And I said, offers are open. And I said, yes. I said, I'll take it. And then we talked about it.
So what happened to your company?
So that company, when we came out here, the company that hired me, they literally bought the company for the pieces. They didn't want the customers. They wanted us, myself and my partner.
Okay, so the two of you came.
So they bought the assets. We came here, and then I worked for a living for a while. Worked for different startups, about 3 startups, and then I started my next company after spending 9 years at Sun Micro and stuff like that. So it was a period of working for a living. And then I started a company with guys that I worked with before, right when the bubble started. We didn't know there was a bubble starting.
Could you see it or not?
No. We knew that we were starting. There was an opportunity, and it didn't take long. About a year into it, we saw it happening because we went for a first round of, so the first round of funding, we weren't even looking. And talked to a couple of VCs in Valley here to bounce the ideas off them, what we wanted to do and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh, we'll give you money." He said, "We don't want money." Because my partner had plenty of money. He said, "We don't want money." He said, "We'll give you money."
Oh, wow.
And,
so those things did happen.
Did happen. And they gave us $1 million to literally sit in Los Gatos and look at deals. They would send deals our way. And we looked at them and nothing was really didn't work. Then we said, "Oh, let's do," and we came up with an idea. And then we literally talked to we had 3 conversations. And out of that came 11 million. 3 conversations, we want to do this. Now, we were a team, we had worked together before in the same industry and stuff like that. So there were a lot of things going for us, but still the money was super easy.
Did they know you work as clients or suppliers or not?
Well, they knew. We had done something very similar before, selling to the same marketplace, a hospital, basically smaller hospital. And so they had some confidence that we can make things work. But again, it was so easy. And not only that, then later on we needed more money. And we went out and that's when it hit us that something was wrong. Because we had this one conversation with one of the investors, and I remember it clearly. And here's my partner talking about how we're going to make money and blah, blah. And this guy said, hold on. Why are you talking about making money? You should be getting eyeballs. He literally said this.
Oh, that's when that's when people were measuring the number of people seeing you on the web.
And somehow magic will happen. And we looked at each other and okay, we took the money, but we still had a plan to make money. We did. But the board was always, getting us to think bigger and do more and take more money and stuff like that. And luckily we managed not to. And so when the bubble burst, we still had money in that. So that was the other startup. And then the opposite. I did another startup where we talked to.
Wait. What happened to that one?
Oh, that one. No, that one eventually got sold.
Okay. Did you make money or not?
Many years later.
Okay.
Yes. And so then I moved out of that company, did some hanging out and consulting for a year, and then I started another company. And I thought, it was going to be easy.
Piece of cake.
The bubble had burst, and we talked to 60 plus VCs, and everybody said, interesting, only when you don't need the money, basically.
No kidding.
And finally we got $4.5 million for, I think it was 60% of the company or something like that. It was, in my mind, it was a real ripoff. And that company didn't go anywhere. It was a bust. So left that one, did some more consulting, and then I started Nearsoft. And that was in 2000. Well, I started thinking about Nearsoft and putting the whole story together. In 2005 and 2006, I actually incorporated the company and started doing some work, but it really didn't start until 2000.
You have the Nearsoft. You want to do the advertisement?
Yeah. It's a great place to work. Yeah, it's been a great place to work since 2007, top 20.
Okay, can you explain to some of the people what that means?
So a great place to work, and World Blue is another one that we're a certified freedom center company. And what that means is that they deploy a questionnaire every year at about this time. And then people respond, and they ask what kinds of questions. So in the case of Great Place to Work, it's all about, do you like your job, and you feel you're listened to. And it's a lot less scientific. But it's been around for a long time, so I've seen people are really Fortune 100 best companies and all that. And so we deploy this to get the answers back and calculate, and they tell us where we ranked. And we've been in the top 20 since we started. Yeah. And last year we're number 3. Yeah, we're a self-management, which means there's no management. There's no assigned management. There's leadership and there's hierarchy and stuff like that. All this stuff happens in response to our environment. So if something needs to be fixed, it gets fixed. So for instance, now somebody said, we have this interview process that starts with a written test. Something that I found many years ago, somebody said, oh, we gotta change that. My first reaction was, no, don't change that. It's been working, what's broken? And, but they very nicely said, well, we're starting what we call a leadership team. And I was invited to participate. So that's it. If I want to have an influence on that, I have to participate. And, but that's how we make all the decisions in the company, big and small.
So you get together in a group and then the group decides? So
in this case, it's one guy saw the need for this. He advertised it on mail. And people sign up or not sign up, and then they make a decision and they tell the rest of us what it is.
Oh.
So the only rule is transparency and decentralization. So they can't say, oh, we are going to decide from now on, what shirts to wear on Mondays. Can't do that. But it's got to be towards decentralization. But that's the way that we decided our bonuses are done. That's the way we decided to gain some law. And it's all over the place.
So how did you learn that?
How did I learn what?
To manage a company that way.
We didn't. In fact, all my
So you still don't know it.
No, all my experience prior to that was in traditional hierarchy.
You're the boss, and you know what to do.
And I did pretty well. I was, going up in life and
you felt good.
Right? But when we started the company, we said, we wanted the company to work for everything. And we were kind of looking, but we were small, it didn't matter. And then we read a book by Ricardo Sembler, a Brazilian.
Holocracy?
No, the book is called Maverick. It's not about holocracy, and I can say more about holocracy. But this guy talked about what he did in his company that he heard of his dad in Brazil in the 80s.
Maverick is the book. I'm going to read that one.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing because in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, but in Brazil, people, they were abducting people. Labor and management were really at work, literally. And this guy did this whole thing where he basically got rid of all the management and even went as far as he had a board. We didn't have a formal board. So he went as far as saying, okay, we're going to reserve 2 seats for anybody in the company who wants to sit on it. So you would walk up to whoever kept this book and said, I want to be in the next meeting. And that person was sitting there.
Wow.
He had classes, they offer classes for people to learn how to create a P&L and stuff like that. And he hasn't been part of the company for a while now. He's been more on the education side. Because this thing is, we got to start when we're done.
It's pretty amazing, but he's a hell of a.
Oh, yeah. But this is interesting. When I had the fund, which was one of the largest companies that I run, mm-hmm. I didn't do that. But one thing that I did was anybody could come to could have an idea, right. And the people had brilliant ideas, and we recognized them. And everybody that wanted to study something, we would pay for it. Mm-hmm. But if their job couldn't be finished for whatever reason because they were busy, then they had to find somebody inside the company that would do that. Right. And the results were amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had people learning English was one of the first things that everybody wanted to learn. Mm-hmm. Then somebody took a photography class. Yes. And they came and then my board said, you're crazy. And I said, they want to take a photography class, who cares? Right. And we paid for that. Yeah. That was the other thing. And then just the relationship between the people improved because suddenly you were not an asset there to do something. You were a human. Right. And they started asking you, what do you think? And everybody was excited about studying. I got excited about learning from them. Mm-hmm. And our meetings at the end of the week became much more enjoyable. Yeah. And just the whole attitude was much better. But I wish I had learned that. This is
well, our sales last year were 70%, a little bit over 70% was from our current customers, their growth and stuff like that. My partner didn't do a damn thing. That just happened because the people in the teams and the way they interact with our clients it's attractive. You want to work with them. I talked to a client today, and before he sat down, he said, I've heard really good things about you guys. Nothing to do with me, has to do with the people on the team.
That work there.
Because they feel that they can show up, they can show initiative, they can speak up. And they handle where our business needs to be.
Okay, why don't you tell us what Nearsoft?
So what Nearsoft does,
yeah,
is that we help our clients grow their development teams with engineers in Mexico. So software development teams. So we create extension teams and they become part of the core development team of the companies here. All our customers are here in the US, most in the West Coast, although now we're starting to have more throughout the US.
Okay, so you're like an external team of the company.
We're an extension of the team. So my joke when I'm in the city particularly is that we're South of Market. Think of what it's being South of Market.
Okay. Well, let's go back to Anita. What was the most difficult time for you? And then we're going to talk about the best time. Being a partner of an entrepreneur.
Being a partner. Okay. So the most difficult time, let's see. I think the most difficult time was when our kids were small. Mm-hmm. In that sense, because
I'll give you that.
Yeah, Matt wasn't around that much, so the kids missed out on it. And it's funny because the other day we were talking to one of our sons and the oldest one, and he was saying, he was what they call him. He said something weekend
warrior.
No, he said something about like we would go on cultural death marches on the weekend.
Oh yeah,
cultural death march, because since he wasn't around during the week, we left everything for the weekend, and then that's when we would go to either a festival or the museum or just do stuff, and that's what he called a cultural death march. But he wasn't around a lot, so in a way, just to come out and say it, a lot of times I felt like I was a single parent, and I would have to kind of like not leave notes for him, but catch him, before he went to sleep, and tell him what had happened during the day and trying to catch up with everything that was going on in school with the kids and, just life in general for us.
Yeah.
So that was, I think that was the most difficult time at that time. The easiest time is now.
is now. One is that the kids are gone. And yeah, we just came back from a trip from Mexico, and we're going to be going now.
Italy.
We're going to go to Italy. It's not, for me, it will be a pleasure trip. He's going on business, and we're going to extend it.
And now
so,
you leave him notes about what are the fun places.
Exactly. All the places that I've gone while he's stuck in a meeting. But yeah. But that's the best part, because now I'm a teacher by profession, but I'm not working. As of last year, I stopped working. So now I get to go to all the fun places that, he only gets to go, but stays only at the hotel and has to come back. Now we extend it, make a vacation out of it. So.
Oh, that's great. But you're still working, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing in Italy is a talk that I was invited to give, and then we're going to Amsterdam to meet a bunch of self-management companies that are interested or doing self-management.
Right.
And I want to see what they're doing there. By the way, Holocracy is really big in Europe. The reason I kind of had that reaction was, what I'm convinced of now is that self-management is not a package thing. You can't buy it and follow a formula.
Thank you, because that's what I thought when I learned about it.
Every time that somebody's tried to do that, buffer is it doesn't work. In the end,
Because you put constraints.
You start following somebody else's dogma, and a lot of people yesterday, somebody asked me, "What is our what do you say, your package or something? What do you call what do we call what we do?" And I said, "Nothing. We don't have a name for it because we don't want to sell it to anybody. The intention and the mindset and stuff like that, yes, but the actual steps, no, because that works for us this year. Next year it won't work for us, and we'll do something else. In fact, every time we hire somebody, the company changes, right?
Yes.
And so maybe what worked last year that will not work next year.
Do you have to lay off people?
So we did in 2009. It was when things were going like that, and they went like this, and we did. And at the time, we weren't as clear as we are on things now. So we had people elect a committee. Voting is a bad thing. Voting is a regressive kind of thing. But we have people elect a subset of people to figure out who want to go, and they picked, I think it's 5 people, and we went from 25 to 20 or 15 to 20 or something. We laid off 5, 6 people. That was the only time. We've fired 3 other people that we actually forced out of the company, and in the last case, it was because of
14 years.
In 14 years.
In
14 years.
Wow.
Great. And the way it works is your team decides that they don't want you in the team anymore. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is if you find a home with another team, then okay. But everybody knows why the other team let you go. But sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's like, oh, he's too this or not enough for that, and he's a better fit with another team, and that happens. But if nobody takes you, then you have to go. And most people will just go. In those 3 cases, they didn't want to go, and we said, okay, well, we'll help you out. We're gonna liquidate you. In Mexico, you have to give severance pay to people, and there's a formula. And so we take care of that. And
so the interesting thing is that this is not something that happens only in the U.S. This is something that is ingrained in the team in Mexico.
It's in Mexico, yeah, right.
Yeah, and you are here.
No, but there's only 4 of us here, 5. Sandra's here now. Until about a year ago, there was 1 with me. And now
so the rest of the team was.
Everybody else is in Mexico.
Everybody else is in Mexico.
So everything is done in Mexico.
Okay.
Our accounting, everything.
Okay, that's interesting. That's pretty good. So what was the hardest time for you as an entrepreneur, and what has been the best one?
The hardest one was scheduling.com. That's when I discovered Agile, the whole Agile methodology. And that's when I started out. And it was, the value was obvious to a few of us, right? What we wanted to do with it. But we couldn't extend it to the rest of the company. And I went about it in my own inimitable ways, which I think back now were in the best way of trying to make that culture work for the rest of the company. And we clashed. I clashed with the CEO and partner and stuff like that. And so it was a year and a half that was really miserable. And at the end of it, we had a mutual, I'm leaving. Yeah, I want you to leave. Okay. So it was like that. And it was sort of best. I mean, it forced me in a sense to end up doing Nearsoft. And to me, that's been great.
Good. And the best moment?
The best moment was really in 2014. That's when we moved from the company. Nearsoft moved from these offices that were not so good to a building that was really nice, and that's when it dawned on me that holy shit, we've done. This is serious. And at about that time, we're starting to see the results of us not being the bosses or anything like that, and things kind of working on their own. And I remember this one time that it felt really good. That was the best time ever. And then the second best time is when we sold the company about 2 years ago. So, and not so much for the money that we made, which is very nice, thank you, but the fact that a bunch of people also got a payout, and to see the reaction in Mexico where only shares in the company. It's not
it's not common.
Yeah, it's not common. People don't understand it. They knew they had a paper that we had given them, but they didn't know what that meant until I remember Luisa, this woman that we work with, calling me and saying, Matt, I got this money. Why do I get this money? And they said, because of the shares. And I said, yeah, but why do I? She wasn't able. She wasn't
thinking she was owner of the company.
Right. And so, and that by the way is one area where if I had to do it all over again, which I'm probably going to do it all over again, we would do it differently. So on the management side, we're self-managed and very progressive and all that stuff. But on the ownership side, we're very traditional. I own the third, my partner owned the third, and everybody else owned the third. And I think we can do better than that for next time around. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be trying out in Europe to see what people's reaction are. They're a little bit more open to sharing and stuff like that to people in the US. In fact, I should talk to you about that, see what your reaction is.
That's interesting. We had that a little bit when I did the fund, and I was living in Chile, and people thought I was crazy, and people thought it was because I grew up in Venezuela, which is a socialist country. And I always reflect back to that because it's sort of ingrained in my psychic, the way I view money as a means to an end, not as an end. And I don't want money. I want the things that I can do. And sometimes I don't need the money to do them. Like I enjoy this conversation so much, and we're at my house, but I don't think it would make a difference where I was.
Yes.
Well, maybe if I was in the Caribbean beach, that would
have been better.
Yeah, but at the end, it's just it's my view of money. It's substantially different to the view of many people who have studied business, because I studied agronomy and I wanted to solve hunger problems at the beginning. But when I was in Chile, I remember saying all my employees have shares, and I remember saying all the companies that we invest in have to have shares for the employees, and having to maneuver through the law. And I wish I had known how to do that better. We didn't have. I did work for a corporation. We didn't have shares, but what the CEO did that I found remarkable was that every quarter he would give a report to all the employees. Whoever wanted to go could go, and he would speak Chinese to me because I had no clue what he was talking about. But for a lot of people, they could ask questions, and they were answered. And the CEO, Gunther Kerham, very German, he's a Bayer guy. He was delightful because he would take the time to make sure everybody understood, but he didn't put pressure on that. So if you had a question, no matter how dumb the question was, he would make sure that he would answer and to me that was a class act. Just observing him was really, really interesting. So that got me into thinking, I don't want to have a horizontal relationship. That's probably why I'm an angel investor, because you don't get to do that. You just play together, I guess.
I'm just fascinated by that. But would you just say, because I never heard of that. So
Okay.
it's a plus. It's a plus. Yeah. And I think that Europeans are more socialist than Americans
Right. They understand
in
that better,
culture.
yeah.
So that's really interesting. But I do want to ask you one question. We still have some. I want to ask you why you supported Women Get Funded. Thank you so much. And these webinars are joined between Women Get Funded, which is the program for women on teaching how to access funding, not just angel investing or venture capital, and the Wealthy Institute, which is an organization I created to change the way we see money.
Right.
So I'm very appreciative of the support that you gave us last year, and I wanted to know why you did that.
So, for one, I trust you. I knew you and I trust you. And for another is I tend to want to promote. Okay, so I want the world to be different than it is today. Obviously, the world that we have today, particularly today, is not quite working for us. And getting women not involved, that's too weak a word, but getting women to be part of it more so than they have been, and people of color and stuff like that is one way to impact change of some sort. I don't know what kind of change it will be. It could be that all the women that enter the marketplace will be just like men or worse or whatever. But you know what? I'll risk it. I'll risk introducing that and making that change. So that's the thing for me. Anything that goes towards developing women and making women more capable of kind of getting in the middle of it and demanding the right is worth doing, and people of color as well. It's very important.
Well, this is interesting because one of the participants that was sponsored by you has an organization in Canary Islands, and I'm going to go there, and they have an agreement with an organization from Africa. And that's why I was decided to look into Africa, and I was talking to a woman who is in the education department in Africa, in Uganda. And last week I was talking to a woman who was in Rwanda in the financial sector. So this is how a very small seed starts growing in ways that could have never imagined. So I'm pretty sure that Christina would have gotten some way into Women Get Funded, but the fact that it gave her a different perspective, and she started working from Las Palmas. She started looking beyond her region into other regions and looked south to Africa. Influenced our decisions to start looking at Africa, and most likely we'll have another impact into other people's lives that we didn't plan.
And by the way, the Canary Islands in particular, because they're part of the EU, but Africa in general, I think is a great source of talent and people who want to do stuff, because they're in the same, pretty much aligned with Europe in terms of time zone, stuff like that. So the same as Mexico and the US. So I think the same model could play there quite well.
Well, I think we'll have to invite you.
Yeah,
and you being in education, have to come along. And you go and play with the elephants and then tell us. Because that has to be part of the deal.
No, she's an important part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure. You have your internal board at home.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
No, and a lot of things I bounce off of her. Should we do this and do it? But or sometimes it's hard to not see what's going on in my face, and she'll go like, "What's going on?" And we'll talk. I'll say, "I won't talk. I won't say anything." And then a half hour later, we're talking.
He'll spill it.
So.
But it's funny because I was thinking now that we were talking is that I had told him at one point, you should look into doing business, south of the border. And at first he was like, nah. And then all of a sudden it came, and I don't know if it was me.
Of course it was you.
That planted the seed.
Of course.
Or what? But it was really cool to see that happening, and also just this company, the Nearsoft company, you go down there, and one of the things that I was telling him was that I see the impact that he's done, that the company has made on all these people's families, and how it's also the people that are working there are mostly young people. We're like the grandparents, is what I call us. But they're involved with their community. Everything that you think that people up here are doing, they're doing down there. And Nearsoft is one of the ones that sponsors a lot of these things. So it's really nice to see that happening. And like he said, they come up with a committee, they decide what they're going to do. Even the Christmas party is done by, a bunch of them get together and they decide what's going to happen. So it's really nice. It's become like a family down there. Even though thinking about family, it's not the same. But I go down there and I feel very welcome. And I'm not even really part of the company, but they include me in everything that they do.
That's great. That's
so
great.
It's really nice.
It's a very refreshing change to what we're used to.
Right, because you usually go to the companies here and you're the spouse and nobody talks to you, and over there everyone talks to me. And if anything, he's telling me that when he goes down there, the first thing they go is they say, "Where's Anita?" Where's Anita? So it's nice. It's very refreshing. And it's a very different.
It's very humane.
Yes. And it's because everyone feels so comfortable, with their job. Everybody's talking to each other. They go out to lunch together. They do things in the evenings together. It's not there's not people hiding in a cubicle and not talking to anybody. It's all open space anyways, by the way. But they're all, working hard and also being very social also. And it's really refreshing to see that.
Oh, that's great. I have to go and take a
you
picture.
should.
I have to go.
Definitely.
I have to go.
So we have a beach. It's an hour from the emergency office, and we have a place there. You're welcome to stay there.
Oh, great.
Really nice, warm water all year round.
Oh, I love it.
Because it's not Sierra Cortez, so it's just nice and warm.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're getting close to closing, but a lot of people ask me the same question.
Yeah.
We had a conversation about resilience in the group, and we make it funded.
Okay.
And a lot of people feel that they can't cope with failure. It's just too hard for them. And one of the things that we were discussing a few weeks ago is when you feel that you're gonna blow up, you do need to stop and take a time off. And they're afraid that if they take time off, society's not going to appreciate what they do. They can't accept failure as a possibility, so they get burnt. And they feel that if they don't get, in my view, if they don't get funded to do $1 million thing, it's a failure. And my position has always been it's a series of steps. So you manage your resources as efficient as you can, but you always keep going. And sometimes you go backwards and you reconsider and you move forward.
Right.
But a lot of people have asked me to ask you, individually and as a couple, how do you keep moving when you feel that you're going to fail? How do you build resilience? What is the secret sauce?
Well, for me, it sounds trite, but it's true. I either learn something or win something. I can never fail. I cannot fail. And I mean, there's that moment of desperation where you go, oh shit, and you had your expectations going a certain way. It happened with our kids. We expected our kids to be a certain way, and they're not. Does it mean that they failed or I failed? No, it's just different than I expected. That's my problem. I got to fix that. So there's that moment of that you have to face yourself and where your expectations were and say goodbye, and we'll can make us move other stuff.
So that's interesting. So you don't see. So what failed is the expectation.
Yeah.
So the expectation.
My expectations. Yeah.
The expectation fails, and it opens up the opportunity to learn.
And then you can see reality for what it really is, and go, okay, I can work with that, and then go do it. But there's a moment of you're desperate, you're pissed, and you're that you can never do away with, right? But don't let that consume your life. Is what I would say. I don't know, as a couple, whatever. I don't know.
has a couple when the company is not going.
Well,
Okay.
when you feel your failure, like, you know, you brought a very interesting point. You know, my daughter tried to commit suicide. Talk about failure. You know, this failure right there.
Yep.
And I was a single mom, so I couldn't blame anybody but me.
Right.
And you know, sometimes you have to say, I have to step up.
Yeah, there is a lot of where you want to blame yourself, like what he was saying, even with the kids. But you also have to kind of step back and not take it personal, like, you know, and then see it more of a, okay, so where do we go from here? You know, every time, you know. So he has started several, you know, Matt started several companies, and not all of them have done well or as well as now Nearsoft. But it's just, you know, so okay, so this didn't work, so what are we going to do next? You know.
Well, it's for all of you who have partners, that's what you need to tell them. Okay, that's right there, because that's the other thing that I can only imagine that, because I didn't have a partner at the time. But it's how do you tell your partner of failing, and then what happens there? How do they?
Well, you can't surprise them. It's not like, oh, everything's going well, everything's going well, and then, oh, we lost our money. You gotta share as you go.
I have this, I don't know if it's like, I want to call it like radar or whatever, but I noticed that, you know, when he is having a difficult time, I kind of pick up on that for me. Yeah. And then I go, okay, are you okay? You know, I never say, do you want to talk? But are you okay?
She'll say, talk to me, Matt. Talk to me.
That's a reality.
That's true. I have to talk to me, because, you know, you don't want to keep it to yourself. I don't want him to keep it to himself. I mean, we're in this together, you know, so we need to share it, you know, and come up with a solution that way. And sometimes he's just talking it out. He goes, you know what? I think I know what I got to do now. Yeah. You know, so he uses me as a sounding board. But if you don't have that and you keep it all internalized, you know, that makes it
that's really hard. That's really hard.
A lot harder.
And as the kids got older, they became part of that, that support thing, where I had long discussions with them, and then I would come up with ideas. They're full of ideas. I mean, they're a great source of ideas. Yeah. And they would leave me notes, like Julian one time left me a note that said, you know, we're proud of you for trying, or something. It was
encouraging notes.
Yeah, encouraging notes.
Which is cool.
Really.
You know, I have that from my kids as well, and there was a conversation in another group about how hard it is as a single mom to run a company and have kids and all of that, and I did that, and I did some things poorly, but it can be done. And one of the things that I said is that don't compartmentalize your life.
Yes.
So you're in that together. So my kids were very resourceful, and they still today, we share a lot of things, and they're very entrepreneurial, and they're a little bit crazy sometimes, and that's a lot of fun, because it would be so boring if they were predictable. But I think people who have kids tend to think that to be a good father or a good mother means to do the predictable Disney World thing, when in the reality is also to be vulnerable and to be and to share your concerns, because then they can see that failure is an option. That's, my kids saw it from the beginning. Being poor was an option too, and you're always learning. But not taking action was not an option. You need to move forward, and I think actions speak much louder than words. So I think that's another thing that people need to realize.
I think our kids also realized that Matt was never going to be an 8 to 5 person, you know. But one of the things that and actually, after, when you're in it, you think that's a really bad thing not to be that, you know. And I actually felt it also. It was like, you know, everybody else is coming home, you're not coming home, that kind of thing. But we had other ways of coping with it, you know. But one of the ways that we did is that I would take him to work with him, you know. I mean, it wasn't like, didn't send him there. We would just show up at the office, you know. He knew that we were coming. Everybody knew us. One of the things that Matt's really done well, and I think, you know, kudos to him, is that everyone knows who we are. You know, he always talks about his family. It's not that he has a picture of us on the on his desk or anything. It's just that everybody knows who we are even before we show up. So the kids were really excited about going to the office because they also got to do things like see virtual reality before anybody else did, play on the internet before anybody else did, you know, the video games and stuff like that. So they got a lot of good stuff from it too, you know. So when we talk to them now, they go, you know, it wasn't as bad as it was, as we thought it was, you know, because you don't know how much you as a parent, you're always concerned is how much damage are you causing, you know. And me, you know, we had one, you know, my oldest son went through big time of depression, and he went to a psychiatrist, and the first thing I told him is, it's okay to blame me. I go ahead, don't worry, blame me for everything, you know. But you know, so I took, and it wasn't like I was taking
I wish I had spoken to you. That never happened in my house. It's like, no, why are you so imperfect?
So no, I'm very judgmental. I've had to work on that a lot with my kids, you know. But you know, it's giving them that opportunity, you know, that they had got that opportunity. I know that they missed out on a lot of stuff, but they also had a lot of other things, you know.
Well, the other thing that I see that my kids appreciate, but of course I think because they're parents now, I think as they grow, they start appreciating things. No matter what you do, they say, this wasn't that bad. But one of the things that my kids appreciate was the intention to do things. And they think, I always wanted to change the world, but I worked at that. Yeah. So to them, it was really inspiring to see their mom just doing stuff instead of being at home complaining of the things that didn't work. And now with the situation in Venezuela, that's something that it's a force in the family. We created a nonprofit, and we're just trying to work at it or exploring how we can make change. But that was something that my kids really appreciated was, you know, you were taking action and accepting that you're not perfect, which was hard for me. It was very hard because I thought I did think I was perfect. It's horrible, but I did think that. What a waste of opportunities to learn. But yeah, it's I think kids give you a lot of learnings. But I think the big lesson or the big learning for the audience is don't separate things. No. You are a person before you are an entrepreneur. You're a person before you're a human being, before you are a business person, a business owner, and you are a person before you're a parent too. So it's combined. It's combined. Exactly. And it has worked great.
I hear a lot of this, you know, the person that at work or the person at home. You know, that doesn't make sense. It's the same body, it's the same brain, it's the same everything. Trying to draw a line is really doing damage to yourself and those really around you.
Trying to separate is doing damage to yourself. That's precious. Yeah. It's the same thing that I've been told. You know, if I'm a professor, if I'm an investor, if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm a mom, it's to me, there's too many people there. It's just, they're complicated.
Yeah. It's all the same person.
Yeah, it's just me. It's yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating. Have a good night, and thank you, Matt. Nice. Thank you, Anita. And I'll send a link to Nearsoft and the link to the book as well. Okay. Bye-bye.